What's up, everyone? Scott here from Chernobyl Studios have a much different and unique video for you today. I've never actually done a video like this on my channel before, and I'm going to talk a bit more specifically about orchestration. And this really is because my Discord chat sort of, I wouldn't say talked me into it, but we're very curious to see my workflow and how I build a composition like this to make it sound interesting and, big, I guess is the word you'd want to use. So I'm going to go ahead and play the composition here. It's about 3 minutes long, so if you don't want to hear the whole thing, there will be a bookmark. You can skip ahead. All right, so let's have a listen. So there's the composition where it stands right now. Not done, stuff yet to do. What I thought it'd be a cool video to talk about, and I've never done it before. All right, so the whole thing started literally, I can actually play it pretty real fast. Just started from this chord and me playing around with stuff like that. I think I still have some of the original chords here in the choir, so I can actually bring them up to the strings. I can solo the strings. There we are. So if we solo these. Right, so that was basically what the original idea came from. And that's usually how all of my ideas usually start, is I have one or two chords with a very simple motif, and then I build upon that. So the motif was that simple. It just started from that particular chord with those few notes, and then I built upon that. And I went into this composition with an idea of the emotion and the type of feeling I would try to get across to someone who's listening to it. And this song is going to be, this is the first part of an epic that I'm writing, which is, I think it would be cool to do like an origin story of, how Thor's hammer was created. What was it like before the hammer? What was it like to forge the hammer? And then, what was it like after it's been made? And Thor is a god, right? And I'm just very fascinated with Nordic things. I mean, I have a Thor's hammer that I wear, and that's what I find a lot of inspiration and strength in my life from. And so I thought it would be cool to kind of do an origin story. So the beginning of this beginning section is really to set the mood and the scene and the tone of that, things may be meaningless or very depressive or very hard, right? Sort of like a trudge, like a lot of the percussive elements here are very slow moving and almost rudiment in nature, i.e. there's a very sort of trudging, marching type of feel to how the drums are being played. And then there are a lot of long notes with the instruments that I've decided to use with plucked strings on top of it. And that's a particular thing that I like to do. I always like to have a bed of, let's just call them rhythm notes for the whatever, and then a melody line on top of that. And so when I had the original idea, the first thing obviously is I had to get some period instruments. And there are two instruments that I'm mostly using right now. This is called Dark Era from Eduardo Tarleonte. Awesome instrument. I've used this on multiple projects. I really enjoy using it. Very authentic sounding and very raw. And then this is a new one that I came across a couple of months ago. And this is the first time I'm actually sat down and been able to experiment with it. But this is just called Asgard from denheimmusic.com. And I'm quite impressed with this one because this one really fills in some of the gaps that the Dark Ages instrument has insofar as the really aggressive, thick sounding deep pads. And there's a lot of instruments here. All right. So Viking Age or medieval style instruments, there's a lot of plucked strings. There are flutes and things like that. I haven't really found a spot for the flutes yet. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But as we move on here, I'm going to introduce more modern orchestral pieces, like with the choirs, as you can hear, strings and brass and timpani percussion, things like that. But that's later. I'm only concerned right now on what I'm trying to do, which is to set the scene, to really set people up to get to experience the composition. So if you're here for songwriting tips about how to get a chorus in 30 seconds, this is the wrong song. This is about creating a story, a composition that you can live and experience. So that's what I'm trying to do. And with a composition like this, the ideas that are simple usually end up working the better because it's very easy to come up with different motifs and work off of that. And so to begin with, I just wanted to have a very bare bones, minimal sound. And that's where we have just 3 instruments. We have 2 drum instruments and then this 1 string instrument here. That's it. Now, the reason why I chose the bones one is because of this articulation that happens right here. The slide. It just sounds really cool in the sequence of percussion that happens, especially later on in the song. Okay. And then I'm always a fan of building the original motif and then stacking. Now, if you want to get things to sound large in an orchestra, you have to stack and you have to layer. But you can't just copy paste everything in the same octave range, playing the same notes. You have to do different octave ranges. Some instruments work better in a particular octave range than others. So you have to be wary, or at least know and understand, like, okay, this is a low range pad. I need to stay in the low ranges of that. But I can take another string instrument and put it an octave up and do the same thing. And then we are stacking and creating a layered sound that sounds bigger. Right? So if we just take this alone, It sounds really cool, and I like this. I guess I'll call it an astral type of pad. It's actually called "The Gods Are Speaking," and it just fit perfectly into the tone that I'm trying to create with this composition. Like there's something happening, something going on, supernatural or whatever you would like to call it, and it's just I'm tucking that idea away over here, just to fill in the space. Now, the string stuff sounds really, really neat, but it's not thick enough, right? So this is where I come in with the next string instrument. You can see it's stacked. So I have the one string instrument handling most of the lower frequencies and then doing a harmony on top of the top line here. All right. So it's stacked, and that's what creates the bigness. Now the drums are cool, and if you're in my metal drum programming mastery course, I explained how a kick drum and a snare, those are the two basic elements you need to make a beat to the song. And I'm just proving that with this right here. But we do need some kind of meter aspect of the percussion. With a drum set, that's usually going to be the hi-hat or the ride. In some cases, the crash cymbal, but usually it's a hi-hat or a ride cymbal. Now I can't just use a hi-hat for this, right? I want to use a period instrument. So I was looking through this Asgard instrument, and I found this thing called Viking amulets. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, it's kind of like a tambourine. I can use it in a similar way. So what I've done is I start everything off quite slow. I just go with like a really nice slow trudge. Because I really want to set the stage, the scene. This before time sucks, and I want you to get into the mindset so that you can go along for the journey. All right. Now it's not deep enough for me. I want to have a really thick low end, so we keep this instrument in. I wanted the drums to hit a little bit harder, so I put a thicker drum on every first beat. To really accentuate the top of every measure, to really accentuate like someone who is walking, against their will. Just every step is really heavy. Do I really want to take this next step? Do I really want to go next? So that's what's in my mind when I'm composing this. How do I feel, and how can I translate it into the instrument to make it sound the way that I feel? All right. And then I have the bones. They stay consistent throughout this entire pattern here. Now at this point, I've already set the stage. I've developed this idea to quite a degree, and I just internally feel that I need to introduce some kind of counterpoint melody. Now, there's a couple ways that you can do this. You can just put a melody in there, or you can get a bit more creative. So if we look at this melody, actually, if you really look at it, dun 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 dun, dun 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 dun. This is essentially in 3/4. So I have a 3/4 melody line playing in a 4/4 beat, but the way it accentuates on the start of every other beat makes it sound like it's in beat. It's just another way to add a different character where not everything is in a 4/4 like grid. Here we go. We have everything else doing stuff in 4/4, and then we introduce this melody that is in 3/4. So it's just an interesting contrast to everything that is very structured up to that point. And it also allows me to put an extra voice in there, another melodic voice that can say other things that these other instruments can't do right now because they are being utilized for something else. And you also notice that I picked up the pace of the amulets. I started putting them on quarter notes, more like a hi-hat, right? So it's we're accentuating the song in different ways, and that's how things you can, paint with the orchestra, as it were, where you can create different melody lines that are doing different things within the confines of the structure you've already set up. And I really like doing stuff like this because I love to listen to music over and over again to find new details that I haven't heard before. And for better or for worse, you can thank Cradle of Filth for that. I listened to a ton of them when I was a teenager, and they always did stuff like that. They always had harmonies, melodies in the back that you wouldn't hear straight away. You'd have to listen to the song a couple times before your ear would pick it up. So that's basically where I got that from. So now that I built this idea up, right? But I want to bring everything back down again. I want to keep the depressive nature going. Right? So obviously, if the low end all drops out like that, because I don't want to use this instrument all the time, we need something else. So I came up with this pad here. And this pad, which are octaves apart. And the percussive elements here are just to break up what we were just doing before, where everything is really sort of in a military rudiment type style. And this one is more shaky, ton, 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 ton. What's going on? What's going to happen next? It's almost kind of like a Western, with like the clappers, when someone's like, they're eyeing each other for a duel or something. You have the claps and the wind blowing with the tumbleweeds. It's kind of like that, I guess. But I'm setting this up again to introduce the next set of melodies that I want to do, which are the string lines right here. Awesome. Now, at this point in time, I'm not sure if I'm going to add a bit more of percussion. I might need to add a cymbal around here somewhere for some... There should be a cymbal type instrument that I could find in the Asgard. There's a lot of instruments that I haven't even checked out yet. But then I'm building this up again to the next section here, which includes the choir. Now, I've got Viking choir, I've got more Slavic choirs. I don't know which choir I'm going to use yet, but it doesn't matter to me. It's more just getting these notes in the compositional place that I like them in. And then once I like how everything is written, then I can go back and I can start making decisions about tonal characteristics. Because when we deal with choirs like this, I mean, this is a single sustained patch. In theory, you could look at splitting every one of these notes up into like a female choir, a male choir for the more bass notes and things like that. Or you could do a solo, like operatic type choir for these high notes, and then female and then male. So there's a lot of things that you can try to do to layer different instruments to play the chords for you. So that's where the bigness comes from, right? And also the extra tonal palette of these choirs, because you haven't heard them in the song before. So when these kick in, there's a big dynamic jump. And now the drums have changed slightly. So we're doing, oh yeah, we're not going to see this. So it's like kick, kick, snare, kick, kick, snare, snare, kick, which is a pretty common metal drum beat, if I'm being honest. But then I also have these drums down here that are doing dum, bum, 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 bum. So I literally have three different rhythmic qualities going on with drums on top of the bones that are repeating what they did previously with the pads now, and then with the amulets once again doing eighth notes. Okay, and the amulets are actually going to go up into doing 16th notes later on in the song when the tonal character of the song shifts a little bit. Okay, now this section here, I'm sort of considering it to be the climax of my intro. There's a lot of polyphony going on, there's a lot of chords, and the percussion is really kicking up, and I'm wanting to drive home the fact that something's about to happen. So musically, I am telling you, oh, we're gonna have a big change, something epic is about to go down. Because everything else so far has been kind of like droning, like setting the scene, really trying to get you into the mindset, of what existence may have been like at that time. And then I'm repeating this melody line, and then we jump into somewhat of a different tonal character of the melody. And then I'm using these instruments even more aggressively. I'm making them play a bit faster with a bit faster rhythm, but then I'm putting this melody on top. And this is on top of the ancient lyre, which is just doing chords. I really like the way that sounds. And then with this lute, it sounds nice. Really simulating that something big is about to change. And then the percussion changes just a little bit as well. Mostly this drum down here starts playing on every downbeat, or on every beat, essentially every quarter note. And then we have the Viking ambulance starting to do 16ths. And then the skin snare and skin drum start to pick up as well. And there's actually a snare roll articulation that I can use with the drum here. I really like the way that sounds. And I'm just building and building and building. And that's one aspect that I have learned about listening to folk music. Viking Age music, if you will. There's a certain quality of being able to get into a focus, into a droning type of focus. And that's what I'm doing with all of these because this is just the same note over and over and over with the melody on top of it. But it's almost like you can get into a trance, and it can really become emotive. You can really get into it somehow. And then what I like to do, I like to really build things up, and then I'm famous in my compositions for just stopping it. Because in my opinion, that's the most effective and abrupt way to get people to notice something. this is just a variation of the motif here, because these are two motifs that I came up with on the guitar actually that are going to show up later on in the composition. So I'm telegraphing what you're going to hear later on with the guitar parts and other orchestral parts as the song progresses. But I sort of debated about doing this video because I'm not a music guy. I don't know notes. I don't know music theory. I just know how I want to feel when I hear something. And the advice that I could give you is that when you come up with a motif, you want to expand it. Okay, you want to fill in the holes, fill in the gaps. Okay, you have a lot of percussion is very important. You can do a lot of things with percussion. Like if I just got rid of the Viking amulets and the drums of hell, for example, and we went to this section. It's still cool, but I'll just put the Viking amulets back in. Another dynamic layer, and then I put the drums of hell back in. It just becomes overall more powerful. And really layering your instruments, that's really where it's at. And that's really all I can say. The next thing I will say is that if you are feeling creative, only worry about being creative. Don't give a damn about, what meter is this in? Is this in 7/4, 6/4, 11/16? Just put everything at 1/1 or 1/4, so you just have a quarter note metronome, and figure it out later. Just get the thing recorded. Get your idea out of your head and in your DAW. That's the most important thing that you could really do. And a lot of these parts came with me just sitting here on repeat, listening to a part and just playing and playing and playing and experimenting and coming up with like, oh, this sounds cool, that sounds cool. This is not a process where I'm like, okay, so this is an E minor, which means I can do. I don't even know the notes in E minor, okay? I don't know anything. I just know how I want to feel when I hear what I'm writing. And I let basically my emotion and I let my creativity and I let my imagination and the vision of what I'm trying to create really push me when it comes to composing. And yeah, I wish I could be more technical, but I think if you get too technical, it'll actually be to your detriment. Okay. So a couple of things right off the bat. Build your idea slowly. Introduce melody and counterpoints that may not fit exactly within the meter that you're working in. If it sounds cool, it probably is cool. All right. Get very creative with percussive elements. Try to put offbeats and accents in places that you wouldn't normally expect to hear it. Like, for example, right here. It's just like, oh, okay. It's just an extra element that's filling space, that's unique, that makes the entire whole composition sound more interesting to listen to. Because at face value, we're looking at this, I would not call this very complicated music. But it's written with a purpose in mind to create an emotional response and an atmosphere that I'm going after. All right. And that's really all I can think to say about this video. Yeah, so if you have any questions, put them in the comments below. I really don't know what else to say. I'm just, like I said, it's the first time I made a video like this, and it's mainly because my Discord members browbeat me into it. I'm just kidding, they did not. But I thought, hey, what the hell, why not give it a shot? So that's the video. Any questions, leave a comment down below. Oh yeah, right, and before I go, at the time of this video, there's only 6 days left for my newest course that I just put out, Mixing Your First Metal Song. Basically, if you feel frustrated or a bit lost and you would like to have a solid foundational way to get started mixing and to get the fundamental mixing basics under control, this is going to be perfect for you. So it's beginners, intermediates. It'll be great. There's a bunch of people already inside. You get all the multi-tracks. Just the link for this is in the description. Check out the page. And, I was just talking about that Discord group. If you grab this, you'll get invited to the exclusive Discord group and you can take part and participate. So yeah, only 6 days, 10 hours from me recording this video left to getting at the intro price, and then it goes back up to full prices. All right, that's going to do it. Thanks for watching the video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good one.